Welcome. Thank you so much, all of the attendees, for joining this on such very last minute notice. We appreciate that very much. We are so excited to give you some information on the Summer Experiences and Enrichment for Kids grant, the SEEK grant. I'm Jennifer Papich. I am the WRPA current president with the city of Spokane. And we are going to get going here. We're going to give a little bit of information about the grant, and then we'll introduce all the folks that are responsible for making this happen so far. All right. So again, I know that some of you have received this information in the announcement for this informational webinar here, but we have Washington Recreation and Park Association, we have Association of Washington Cities representatives here with us today, and also Washington Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction here with us today. This is a really exciting partnership that WRPA is honored to be a part of. We were honored to be considered for this partnership. This grant has been made possible by federal COVID-19 relief funds given to OSPI. And then OSPI and AWC contacted us, and we're so proud to be part of it. Again, these grants will support local agencies in expanding their current summer programs or creating a new program in order to provide more kids with access to outdoor learning opportunities, especially those who are typically underserved and who are most impacted by the pandemic. As a reminder, if you can keep yourselves on mute during the meeting, please use the chat box for any questions, and we do have time at the end of this for Q&A as well. So if you want to throw your question in the chat box so you don't forget about it, and then we'll catch it at the end, or just save your questions for the end, that will be good also. Move on to the introductions. I've already introduced myself, so I will go ahead and start at the top with Jenny from OSPI and let her introduce herself, and those present that are on this list will just go down and let them say hello.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here and to talk to you more about this opportunity. I'm Jenny Plaja. I'm the Assistant Director of Government Relations with the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. And yeah, thank you all for being here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jacob Ewing. I'm with the Association of Washington Cities. I'm a legislative and policy analyst with the association. Again, just very excited to be here, to be partnering with OSPI and WRPA to be getting this grant money out into our communities. So very excited to work with you.
Hi, I am Tiffany Hanzo-Martin. I am the WRPA Executive Director, and I've been working with all of these different great organizations to bring it to life here through WRPA.
And good morning, everybody. I'm Doug Levy. I get to serve as the WRPA state lobbyist. I'm just thrilled about this and thrilled about the turnout, and super excited that we're talking about a program to get money on the ground to serve more kids through summer programs. So this is a good hour to spend as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Agreed. Dave Johnson and Paul Simmons are both heavily involved in this process, but I don't believe that either one of them are here today. But I wanted to make sure and give them credit for helping out as well. Let's move on to the next slide here. And I'm going to let Jenny talk a little bit more about the funding and what we're here to offer funds for this summer. Thank you.
So this funding is part of the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief ESSER fund. This is our third round of ESSER now that we've had since the pandemic has started. And this is specifically under the American Rescue Plan ESSER. So we call it ARPA ESSER or ESSER 3. And these funds are to be used specifically in response to the impact of the pandemic on students in pre-K through 12. So there are a lot of different buckets, a lot of different moving pieces. Most of this funding that is designated for K-12 goes directly to school districts to respond to the pandemic. And so there will be a lot of work happening there. And then there are some dedicated sources that are kind of set aside for the state, this being one of them. It recognizes in the federal legislation that effective summer programming can address students' social, emotional, mental health, and academic needs through a combination of activities, and a lot of those include strong partnerships at the community level and with other providers, and they call out specifically including summer camps. The partnerships are focused on helping sustain and build up local programs, and also support development, expansion of programs in rural and remote communities that we know are often the most difficult to get up and running and the most difficult to sustain over time. Our focus from the state is to maximize enrollment in summer programs, particularly with a focus on underserved students and those who are most impacted by the pandemic. We know that just the past year, students have had, it has been such a disruption in their social connection, their access to peers, and their access to caring adults. And so we just want, our underlying goal is more students, especially those who are most at need, to get access as soon as possible to quality programming. The program should target students of all ages. This is not only for those who are most impacted by the pandemic, it is for all students. We just want to make sure that we're paying close attention to the outreach and to bringing in and engaging those who are typically underserved, because those are often the ones who have been most impacted by the pandemic due to lack of resources, a lot of the structural organizational things that are not reaching those communities. The state legislature further defined this work as they were allocating the federal appropriations to us, that they want to prioritize activities or programs that promote social connections with students, with their peers, encourage physical activity, and support families who are struggling with childcare needs. So this is a lot of the work that we do is really focused on like capital L learning recovery. So it's very academic, it's very connected to school districts. This bucket is a little bit more looser. This is really about, we know that the research supports that just that social engagement, that again, connections to caring adults, that all of that supports students' academic well-being, learning, and just their social emotional health as they come back to schools and those relationships. So that's kind of where we're coming from this. We've really passed it over to leverage the experience, knowledge, leadership of WRPA and AWC and the incredible programming that you all have going already in your communities. We wanted this funding to be able to get out quickly and to serve as many students as possible. And so we really just want to take advantage of the structure that you all have already built and hope to really make an impact as quickly as we can. I think that's all that I have. I'm hanging around for questions though.
Hi, Jenny. This is Ranger David Paul with Washington State Parks. I was asked to sit in on this meeting to see if there was anything that State Parks can help with, or if we could partnership or be part of this in any way or shape or form, or anything that we can help with. Or if we're a non-participant, I don't know which.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And I think the expectation, so I'll pass a lot of the kind of processy questions off to WRPA and AWC. That's really why we engaged in this partnership with them. And so how the different Parks and Rec organizations work and support these efforts. I think Doug, are you going to take on this and just talk a little bit more about who's eligible, communication?
Yeah, I can jump in a bit. This is Doug Levy. I think that is a very good question. I think the essence of this is to move the money out quickly down to the local agencies that do summer programmings. But David, I think we've had a fair amount of discussion about the fact that the local Parks and Rec agencies doing this work may have very good ideas about how to form partnerships on the ground. And there may well be instances where our local Parks and Rec agencies do something in coordination with state parks. So I think we wanted to make sure not to foreclose those things in the application process.
Okay, and so my next question, thanks Doug for that clarification. And I can be happy to leave my contact information if that's helpful, if state parks in any way can be of any service. I'm only representing a small 4 parks that I help manage, but we have parks obviously statewide, and I can certainly pass along your information to our headquarters folks or our regions folks to help out the local park systems.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Doug, if you want to kind of start talking a little bit about this cycle here and just kind of expand upon what Jenny said, and then we'll.
Sure. This gives you you all a bit of the landscape about who the grant program is intended to serve. And I think Jenny gave you a pretty good platform to jump off of for your thinking about applying. But so just to reiterate, we're talking about summer programs serving school-aged youth. That's the focus here. And it can be for existing programs or creation of new programs. Remember, we're talking about a grant round moving quickly for this summer, but again for 2022. So we don't want to be dictating whether you're looking at expanding something that exists or creating something new. Just remember that with the tight turnaround on applications, I think our assumption is that for 2021, we may get a lot more interest in building upon things you've already got underway or already got in the queue. Again, on the purpose of the grants, I think Jenny did a good job telling you about the expectation there, but increasing access to quality outdoor summer programming for youth, and particularly thinking about some of those youth who have been underserved, either the students or the families, and have been just particularly and in a disparate way impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. We caution you that, you know, the OSPI folks had to wait for the legislature to sign the budget to know that this money existed. And they have been in talks with AWC and WRPA ever since, really. So we're trying to turn this ship around very quickly, but we have to get a signed contract that allows us to then launch the application. So by the time we get all that done, we're only going to be able to cover enough reimbursements for half of July and August. So thus the idea of running some funding out the door this summer and also having funding on hand for summer 2022. But OSPI has let us know they would love to see a lot of students served this summer to the extent possible. And then you heard Jenny talk about the prioritization of activities and programs. Again, this is right out of the legislature's budget, but helping with that social connection that just hasn't been there, right, for this last 14, 15 months, and helping to encourage the physical activity that kids need so much and support families who have been struggling to deal with childcare over this year plus. So again, that's reiterated here as we queue up the grant program. I think am I doing this one too, Jen, I believe?
Yeah, Doug, I'm going to pause for just a second. A couple of questions that I can address. I think some are for WRPA and or AWC, but a couple of the questions around use of funds on can this be passed through to like YMCA, Boys and Girls Clubs. There are other funding sources that'll be specific to other CBOs, other organizations. So this is really intended for Parks and Rec. I think if you get into, if there are, I don't know if there are programs that are kind of run in partnership together, then that could be an allowable use. If there's a summer program that is like jointly ran by a Parks Department and YMCA, but the intent of these funds is not to pass it through to those organizations. There will be other funds available for them to apply for. This is really supporting, you can see here who may apply. And we want to minimize the administrative cost as much as possible. So just that, we're starting to get into passing the dollars through multiple entities. So that's not what this is intended to do. Another question around if it can be used during the school year or like winter break or other breaks. This is purely for summer programming. Like if you have a summer program that we haven't gotten as specific of like only the month of July, August. I think most summer programming wraps up at the end of August. If you have a summer program that runs into September, that's okay, but it is not. Again, we have other dedicated fund sources that are for before and after school, for community-based organizations and other partnerships. So this is specifically for summer only, summer 2021 and summer 2022. I think those were the two questions.
And then Jenny, I can answer. I know that Kevin, I think it was Kevin had a question on if you're funded for 2021, can you reapply for 2022 for a different program? And the answer is yes. So basically, we realize that this is a really quick turnaround for 2021. And that's why we're kind of saying, hey, if you already have an existing program, it might be better to do that. But by all means, if you want to create a new program, you can. Then we will open up an entirely different grant cycle starting in the fall for summer of 2022. And you are more than welcome to reapply again for that.
And we really want to encourage you, if it's possible to serve more kids this summer, to get it out to more families, to please try to do that. We know that the needs of our students are urgent, are right now. So I know it might be easier for some to say, we'll just wait and apply for the next summer. And so if there's any way to expand current programming, we would hope that you all are exploring how to do that so we can bring some of those kids in.
The only other question I see is a question about tribes, and I think that falls into the same bucket. The question we got from our friends in state parks, that the design of the program is that local government agencies running Parks and Rec will be the applicants. We leave it to you to determine if there are partnerships on the ground that you have in mind. I also, Jenny made the point, obviously, that there's going to be other funding and some other work with some of the community-based organizations, so keep that in mind. But just to cover this slide quickly, I think we've danced around it, but this grant program is for those local governments running Parks and Rec. So city-run, county-run, metropolitan park districts, park and recreation districts, park and recreation service areas. So all of those statutorily designated local Parks and Recs entities. And I think I'm handing it off to someone else.
I can cover this slide. Thanks, Doug. This is just if there were questions about the students most at need or students who have been most impacted by the pandemic. This was also in the federal language. And so it does indicate that this is to carry out evidence-based summer enrichment programs that respond to students' academic, social, and emotional needs and address the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on student subgroups. And it lists out these groups. Each major racial and ethnic group, children from low-income families, children with disabilities, English learners, a particular gender group, migrant students, students experiencing homelessness, and children and youth in foster care. So again, this is where we want to target our outreach. We want to be thoughtful about bringing these communities in. It is not, the program does not have to be for these groups only, but we want to really make sure that we are reaching out and bringing in and finding ways to engage these students. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Jenny. I was just going to say also that it also does not have to be a 100% outdoor program. We do want to have an outdoor component. We think that's a real emphasis here, but it doesn't have to be 100% an outdoor program. I know that was one of the questions that I saw.
Yeah, that was additional language added by the state legislature in their appropriation. Was they added that it needs to have an outdoor component. So I think they're building it in. You all can clarify when we get to the criteria, but it sounds like it's going to be built in where that is you will get scored higher, or you will have more, the more outdoor activities are provided in the program.
Correct. Yeah, that we'll go over that in the scoring component also. And then I'll let Tiffany talk a little bit about the process. And I know that Jacob is going to talk a little bit here as well as far as AWC's role in this grant. So here's just, we wanted to do the projected grant application schedule. As Doug mentioned before, we don't officially have a signed contract yet. So this might be a little bit, everything is a subject to tiny bit of a change, but we just wanted to give you kind of what the outline is going to be for the timetable here. And I'll let Tiffany take the reins here.
Yeah, hello everyone. So obviously all of you are here for the webinar, and of course, as soon as we can open the application, we will. But some really cool things once we're able to launch is we will have a downloadable application guide and a cost worksheet for you to gather all the information you need and to cost out everything for your program or project prior to submitting your online application. So the application process will be done online through the WRPA website using your login that you already have, whether you're a member or not. If you are a new person to WRPA and don't have a login, that's totally fine. You also can apply. This is not just for WRPA members. This is for all those local governments, entities in Washington State. And so our evaluation period, our application deadline will be July 1st. I know a lot of you were asking about that. So again, you know, this application timeline, it's only going to be a few weeks. We totally understand that that is a tight turnaround, but I believe in all of you. We'll be doing some evaluations through July 6th to the 9th. And like we mentioned in the beginning, we had a few of our current board members gather past employees of agencies. We tried to get as diverse as possible. We will be posting all of our quote unquote judges on our website as soon as we can, just so you can see. We want to be fully transparent with that. We'll do a full ranking list, just like we do, you've probably seen and been a part of in other grant opportunities. And then we'll notify all the applicants by July 12th. And from there, we will pass that to AWC to issue project agreements, which is not completely finalized. But we'll have Jacob talk a little bit more about that after I'm done here. And last but not least, do note that this is funded by reimbursement. So all grants will be distributed on a reimbursement basis. So make sure as you're thinking about what you're applying for, that you kind of can float that cash before you're actually awarded. And with that, I will pass that to Jacob.
Okay, thanks, Tiffany. So again, Jacob Ewing with AWC. We are serving as the fiscal agent for this grant process. We are partnering with OSPI as well as WRPA to help with the record keeping, the paying out grants on the reimbursement basis, as Tiffany has stated there, and then helping out with other aspects of the grant process as well. So with the, I guess there's two things here. Right now, we're finalizing our contract with OSPI. Hopefully that will be done in the next few days, but we are finishing up that. And once that contract is signed, we'll be able to get that application open and out the door to you guys. As well down there with the project agreement. So once your project has been selected, you will sign a project agreement between yourself and AWC. We'll be the ones that will send out reimbursement checks to your organization. Will be that fiscal agent. So again, it's a partnership with WRPA with outreach, and then for us here at AWC will be, I guess, the money people, but yeah, that fiscal agent for this grant program. But happy to answer questions as I can. Thank you.
I think I'm jumping in on this one. So what we wanted to do with the grant, in structuring it the best we could to give, enable as many of you as possible to apply and be thinking about serving the entire state. We wanted to give you some choices of how much money to apply for. Everybody's got different programs, different ranges and sizes of who they serve. So you can see there's 3 tiers here on how much to apply for. depending on the size or robustness of your program. And then we wanted to make sure that Davenport wasn't going to be evaluated against Seattle, so that your population range that you serve is taken into account, and that's the type of agencies you're evaluated alongside of. So as you can see here, up to 10,000, 10,001 to 50,000, 50,001 to 100,000, and 100,001 and up are the service areas that we've called out here. And when the application gets launched, you'll see all of this spelled out, and it'll be, I think, hopefully a pretty straightforward online application that will be fairly easy for you to get through.
Perfect. Thank you, Doug. And then moving on to this slide, I know that Tiffany mentioned before, but just to kind of reiterate, the folks that are going to be evaluating this, the committee members, consist of 5 emeritus WRPA members. And they will again individually evaluate the scores of all the applications, and then they will, the system will combine all the rankings, much like an RCO grant or other grant processes. And I know that some of you might have questions about what are eligible costs, and that is going to be also explained very much in detail on the grant application, but there really isn't a lot that isn't eligible. We're talking, you can apply for staffing, transportation, field trips, facilities, supplies. It's pretty a wide range of opportunities for you for the funding opportunities there, and that will all be on the application. And here is for your information on how the evaluators are going to be scoring these grants. First is on the program design, and it's weighted, so whatever point total that is between 1 and 5, it will get multiplied by 2. It's weighted heavier than some of the other ones. And again, like Jenny said, and Jenny, please feel free to chime in here at any point. But we're prioritizing activities or programs that promote that social connection, encouraging physical activity, and that are affordable and accessible to all. The next criteria that they're going to be scoring on is the youth served, and that's actually weighted the highest. It's a multiplied by 3, whatever that score is. And this is engaging and involving of those school-aged youth, the ones who are underserved, who are disproportionately impacted, like we said, by the pandemic, and really addressing access and equity for those who have previously had a more difficult time participating in these programs due to a variety of barriers. And then outdoor engagement, that outdoor engagement piece is rated. It's just on a scale of 1 to 5. It does not have a multiplier. And really looking at evaluating the quality and quantity of evidence-based outdoor education and recreation that's provided in the program. And then the last piece that's getting rated here is assisting COVID impacted students and families. This is where it's like helping families be able to return back to work by providing them childcare, and a good childcare that's an enriching opportunity for their kiddos, that's a safe place, that's affordable for them. And again, that emphasis on supporting the social, emotional, and well-being of the youth that are participating. Jenny, do you want to have anything to add to this, the criteria slide here?
I don't think so, other than one of our goals is really to make sure that we are getting a geographic reach across the state. One of the benefits of partnering with all of you is we know that these are statewide organizations. And then I would just say, like, the childcare component, an example is like if you have a program that typically is a half-day program and you're able to expand it to be a full-day program, because now that'll help with the, alleviate the needs of families to have childcare. But we know that there are so many programs that don't go the full summer or even the full week or the full, so we didn't want to have that diminish too much the other quality that a program can bring. So it's kind of an extra bonus kind of thing of where we know that these programs having a safe and engaging place for their students to go during the day as they return back to work is really important for families. The only thing that I would add there. And then I see some other questions too that when we get to the Q&A, we can chime in on.
Well, and we're here at the Q&A,
Oh, okay.
you guys. So yeah, please, let's open it up. If you want to put your questions in the chat, then we can answer them, just so everybody's not speaking at once, but we're more than happy to answer all your questions. We do realize that this is quite a quick turnaround, and we had to pull this together really fast, so we'll try to answer your questions as best we can. And I know that Jenny said that she could answer some that she saw right away, and we'll just kind of tag team that. If Tiffany, I don't know if you want to kind of ask the question and then we can answer it.
Yeah, so a question I got is, does it have to be a childcare situation, or can it be an educational program which includes parents?
No, it doesn't have to be child care. I guess I would say the first one. I'm not sure the question of if it includes parents. That's not a requirement, I guess. Like it doesn't, the purpose of these are to support families who need childcare is one of the goals of this. And so it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be just childcare. It's if a parent is also engaged in the program, that doesn't mean that it's not meeting the intent of this. I don't know if that clarifies.
Perfect. We got another one that says, can we use funding to help attract or retain summer staff in order to increase capacity at camps?
I do know that staffing is a component. So on the eligible expenses, staffing costs are one of those expenses that you can apply for.
Perfect. How are you defining school age, K through 12, or 5 years old to 12?
Yeah, school age for public schools is generally like 4 to 21. And that is, so 4-year-olds could be enrolled in a transitional kindergarten program or are planning to start school in the fall. If they're 4 right now in the summer, they may be turning 5 before the fall. And so that's where the priority is 4 to 21. And so it's again, some students with disabilities continue past 18 while they get their meet their graduation requirements, and there are other students too, especially with the pandemic, who may have missed out on graduation requirements, who didn't qualify for some of the waivers that were available, who may still be taking another year or two. We do not expect programs to verify that a student is enrolled in a public school. I think it would just be if there was an application from a program to serve, 20-year-olds, or it would be like, well, are all those kids really still in the public school system? So it's just kind of it's to think about your focus, but it isn't and I think there was a question about preschool. It's like if the program serves preschool age and others, that's okay. It's allowable. It's not prohibited. But it's just to get the focus. This is supposed to complement students' social, emotional, academic well-being as they re-engage back in the school system after being mostly remote over the pandemic.
Perfect. We have another one about capital expenses allowed, like bands.
Yes, there's nothing prohibiting that. Again, I think tying it has to be very clearly tied to how that expense is going to expand the program and help serve more students. But there's nothing prohibiting that.
Yeah, I think I might add that on that one, when you see the application, I think you'll see a number of components spelled out. So I think it'll be easier for all of you to know what the eligible expenses for reimbursement will be.
We had another one around, can one application have many components? So I don't think we mentioned this in our PowerPoint, but we're only allowing one application per government agency. However, that can cover an entirety of your summer program, or it can cover a specific program or project you're working on for the summer. So just keep that in mind. Is there anything else we need to add to that?
Tiffany, I was just going to really quick, just looking at the projected draft of the application, just list off some of the other expenses that might help answer some questions for folks.
Yeah.
Some of the expenses that we do have listed are staff, equipment, scholarships, supplies, transportation, facilities, professional services, field trips, and it does say meals. But this is an important part for OSPI, and Jenny can expand upon this. But if your agency is currently a sponsor of the OSPI meal program, or you're planning on becoming one, a site for the first time, meals aren't covered in that because it's kind of already covered through OSPI. So only if the answer is no, like if you're not a site for OSPI free meals for the summer, then you can apply for that expense to be reimbursed.
Yeah, and just to clarify, so there's another federal funding source that is all for meals, and all meals for kids are pretty much covered right now. And so you can be a sponsor of a summer meals program, or you can be a site for a neighboring sponsor. So that is one thing. We have a list on our website that we can get to you if you are not enrolled as a sponsor. I think the deadline has passed to enroll. I know it has. But you can also find out if you can be a site for a local sponsor. And so we just want you to make sure you're looking at that source first, because that's kind of an unlimited source, which will free up these dollars for other things that you can use them for.
Perfect. We have a handful of questions still. So Associated Recreation Council is a nonprofit partner of the Seattle Parks and Recreation, and we're providing summer childcare in collaboration. Can we apply for this opportunity?
I think
I believe.
Seattle
ahead,
Parks would
Jenny.
have to apply, right?
Right.
I'll let you
I
answer,
was going to
yeah.
say, I believe in that case, through your partnership, you'd want to have City of Seattle be the applicant. But clearly, if you're partnering with them and you're providing that professional service, you make that arrangement with the city.
We have another one. We contracted with a nonprofit that serves at-risk homeless youth, incarcerated, etc. They teach youth life skills through music production. Should we wait for the later opportunities for contracted programs, or just go ahead and apply?
I say go ahead and apply. There was another question about tribal organizations too, who have parks and recreation programs. And again, I don't know how they classify in the parks and rec world, but I would say that there's a lot of funding available. There's no best funding necessarily. They all are going to have specific targets and focuses. So if you have an organization that serves students in the summer and can do this one, you won't be prohibited from applying for other funding sources. You'll just have to make sure if you're getting multiple that you're, these funds are used to do this. And so you can't get two sources of funds and expand the same number of kids, if that makes sense. So you just have to meet the different criteria of the different pieces. So I'd say absolutely apply for this. And if you also want to apply for the other opportunities as they come out, and now we've got these good connections, so we'll be able to make sure you all are aware of the different opportunities coming out through your communication channels. But I'd say absolutely apply for all of them.
We had another question around potential audits. So I don't know if we want to share about that.
Jacob, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll need to get a bit more detail on this, but as with any federal grant or any grant, there will be reporting requirements. We do want to see what the outcomes of these programs were. Oh, Jenny?
Yeah, and I can add, we did get clarity around this a little bit too, is that our relationship will be a contractor relationship. So it's a little bit different in that the single audit will not apply to this fund source. So we get audited on the funding for how we do it, but at the pass through, the audits will be less, or the requirements, I guess, the reporting requirements will be less so.
Thanks, Jenny.
Do you mean that there should only be one application from a city? So if we're a nonprofit that does programming for parks through an agreement, do we have to coordinate with any other city partners?
I think the answer to that is yes. You want to coordinate with a city. So if you're doing work in a number of communities, you want to coordinate with the city, and that's going to be the applicant for the summer outdoor programming. Just to tag on to Jenny's answer on the tribes, the one thing I saw that in the chat box. So the questioner there, I think, just to amplify what Jenny said, you want to be sure you're not double dipping, because in the American Rescue Plan Act, there are specific allocations for tribal governments. So it might be one of those things where you go ahead and apply, but do some due diligence around whether you may be already getting ARPA money in another way.
That is all of the questions we have in the chat box, but if anyone wants to just raise their hand, we can also answer anything.
I did
Tiffany,
see a
saw one-
question. Oh,
I
sorry,
saw
Doug.
one- Sorry about that. I saw one with matching funds, and Jen, maybe you want to take that one. I don't think we're having a specific requirement per se.
No, there's no matching funds requirement for this grant. That's the question I saw too, Doug. So thank you for that.
Perfect. Oh, we had another one come in. What about virtual programming? Will these funds help cover for virtual programming costs, or is this only for physical / in-person programming?
It's designed for physical in-person programming. If there is a smaller virtual component of it, that could be included, but if it's a virtual program, I don't think it meets the needs of this. That's really what the goal is, in-person and outdoor experiences. So getting kids to be physically active, and so virtual programming just kind of misses that. But we know that we don't want to create barriers to some students who maybe for safety reasons, or say a student has been exposed and needs to go home, like that student isn't excluded from the programming because of those needs. So it can be a component. It needs to be a small component, and there needs to be options for in-person.
Perfect.
And I think I was trying to take some of these on the fly, but just to reiterate, I saw one from Carrie Nass. We're looking for your population range served. We're not gonna micromanage what in your population area is youth up to 18. So just think of your service area as a Parks and Recreation entity.
Is there any other questions that we want to call out that were answered via chat?
And we realize that once the application comes out, or if you have time to think about this a little bit more after this presentation, which is recorded and it will be available on the website for you to reference as well. Please go ahead and you can email those questions to the WRPA office, and they will get those questions answered, and they will give them to the appropriate person to answer that as well.
And like we mentioned, as soon as we have contracts signed and all the logistical things on the back end are completed, we will have informational web pages, downloadable forms, and all of that for you to look through prior to, and be able to ask questions after that as well. So, yeah.
I'm looking through. I think we've captured the questions that have come in on the chat thus far.
One just came in. What will be the starting eligible reimbursement date if we are notified we are awarded on July 12th?
Jacob, did you want to touch that one?
Yeah, and Jenny, I'll have you back up just to make sure I'm correct on this, but my understanding is that this is for mid-July forward. So my understanding is it's from the date that you're notified, not necessarily that the award agreement between AWC and your program is signed. Jenny, is that correct? That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
From our end anyways, unless there's additional process things on your end that you need. But yep, once you're notified.
And there will be, and once that happens, I'm assuming, Jacob, there will be a contract that will be executed between AWC and the subrecipient, and that will have detailed information on that reimbursable funds and what's required for reimbursement, like receipts and invoices and
correct. Yeah, all that information and the process for getting reimbursed will be outlined in that agreement between AWC and your program. So but yeah, so starting from the date that you're notified that you were awarded through the end of the funding period is when you'll be covered.
We got one confirmation question about the application period. So yes, 2021 is one application period and 2022 is a separate application period.
Or we really want to recognize that we know, the outreach to specific student groups and all of that, it's really difficult because your programs are already starting now. So this summer is really just like, let's let's get this to as many communities, families, students as we can. And then maybe we'll or not maybe, definitely we'll have more time to plan and do a more robust offering in the next summer. But
And I would just add, we've listed fall of this year. We will have to work out the exact timing, and part of this is going to depend how the contract gets wound down for this year. But you can count on fall 2021, and then a little more specificity of whether that's October, November, or what have you.
And I think this question is more for Jenny. When will funding opportunities be available for nonprofits?
I think it's hard to say. There are many, like I said, schools are getting money, or districts are getting money right now. Like, we're getting that processed out. So they're going to start receiving their allocations. And one thing that many school districts are doing, so that local infrastructure, if you work closely with a school district to reach out and figure out how you're going to partner there. So that's going to be taking effect immediately. And then we have other before and after school program and a CBO, community-based organization specific program that are still being finalized on how we're going to target that work. So those are kind of TBD. Here in the next couple of months, they'll be available. So there are lots of opportunities, I guess. Then there are some other little like competitive grant programs that'll be offered to districts and or other partners that may involve nonprofits. That's one of our agency's big priorities, is really recognizing the strength of communities to support students. So I guess just keep an eye out. We'll try to go through all of our communication channels to make sure you're getting the information as quickly as possible. Sorry to not have any more details than that. A lot of moving pieces.
There is a lot of moving pieces, and I just, and if more questions come in, we'll go ahead and take them, but I just really want to thank everybody that has been involved in this process. It was quite a heavy lift, and we did this in a really fast turnaround. The partnership with OSPI and AWC and WRPA is one that we are really proud of and hope that we can continue to build upon. We've had a great experience thus far, and for all of you that are going to apply, please apply with grace, as we are, figuring this out as we go, and ask your questions and we will get you those answers. And we're just really excited to be able to provide funding and get you guys funds for your programs for this year and for next year. We realize, again, I know we've said it a million times, but we are so sorry that it is such a quick turnaround for this summer, but we wanted to just try and get some funds out this summer for those that are available and ready to do so. But then also keep in mind that there will be that other cycle for 2022 for those of you that might not quite be ready yet to pull the trigger on this year.